Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, I'm just waiting for them to log on so they could patch me in. Happy New Year. I hope everybody's New Year's off to a great and productive start. What's going on? Um, all right, I'm waiting on them to send this request. The second installment of Black will be up real soon. I actually got a special surprise for y'all coming later this year, but I don't even want to say anything, you know? I'd rather let the work speak for itself.
Hey,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. So, yes, we are definitely going to get started waiting on Dr. Jones. How's your day going?
My day's been pretty good. I actually just got home. I've been out all day. I was in dealing with a I'm dealing with a project, a show that I'm actually writing on. That we're working on the third season
Okay,
for
awesome. Awesome.
Godfather of Harlem.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome. Awesome.
I'm grateful.
I know that's right. I think I see you over there. Say yes to counseling shirt.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I got to stand up, right?
Yes, I'm loving it.
Say yes to counseling.
It looks good. It looks good.
Thank you, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, so I see Dr. Jones in here.
Am I gonna have to? Oh, okay. Hold on. I see the.
Hmm.
Let me accept the request. So she should be coming in.
We made it.
We made it. Hey, Dr. Jones.
Hi, Dr. Hill. Hey, Moses.
Hi, Dr. Jones.
We could get started.
Yes, yes. Awesome. Y'all, listen, we had to figure out Instagram, so I'm glad we figured this out. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talk Therapy Thursday. Yay! It is your girl here, Dr. Hill, and I am with my lovely business partner, Dr. Jones.
Yes, lovely.
Yes, yes. So before we get started and introduce our guest and our topic, we have to give our disclaimer. In no way, shape, or form is tonight's episode a counseling session. Not at all. We are two licensed professional counselors giving mental health suggestions and advice and tips with our fellow guests. So it
Absolutely.
is not a therapy session.
Absolutely.
Yes. So if you are interested in receiving counseling, please email us at info@stepscounselingconsulting.com. Okay. So tonight's topic is supporting a man's mental health. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Jones so we can get started and so she can introduce our wonderful guest tonight.
So, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I think this is an important topic that I think gets swept under the rug. So, thank you so much to our guest tonight who will be joining us.
Yes.
May know him as Ray from Money and Violence, the creator, the writer, a writer on Harlem, a Godfather. He has so many other things. I don't know what I'm supposed to say, like those parts, but so many other things coming up. And we appreciate you taking time to meet with us to discuss this topic that a lot of guys are not comfortable talking with, and you did it. You agreed without a problem. So, no further ado, Mr. Moses Verneau.
Thank you for having me. And secondly, thank you for even wanting to shed a light on this topic. Because, like you said, it's something that isn't. I wouldn't even say it's not real. It's not an issue that's brought up a lot, and even when it's brought up, I don't think that it's something that's taken seriously.
Yes. Thank you for adding.
Right.
We'll talk about that part a little later. So, our first question to you is, as a child growing up, and I know you grew up in a Caribbean household,
Mm-hmm.
what were you taught about mental health, or were you taught anything about mental health?
Um, as a child, the whole idea of mental health was pretty much non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Good behavior was looked at as something to be rewarded, and bad behavior was something that was looked at to be punished or for one to
Mm-hmm.
receive discipline because of. At no point was there really any desire to come to an understanding of why it is that a child may behave in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just believe it's the way of the Caribbean, and especially with me being a male child,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't really persuaded or taught in any way to express feelings or to even acknowledge my feelings. It was
Yeah.
kind of deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
You're a male,
Mm-hmm.
um, accept it and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So,
Yeah.
growing up in that background, how does that influence you today? And as a Black man, how does that influence your thoughts? As someone that grew up in a Caribbean household, and then someone who grew up in the hood.
What's funny is for a very long time, I thought that, all right, so I self reflect a lot.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking inward
Mm-hmm.
for the answers of why I do things outward because I understand
Mm-hmm.
that everything that goes on today didn't just spontaneously manifest.
Right.
It's a result of something. So I'm constantly self-reflecting. And in my younger years, I thought that none of the things that I had experienced really affected me until
Mm-hmm.
I got older and I matured, right? And I became more informed and
Mm-hmm.
understand life a little more. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
when we were younger, we don't realize it's always, it's pretty much, most times it's either one. Either it's weed or alcohol.
Yeah.
And it isn't until later on in life I realized that, what we were doing, because the truth is we all had PTSD because of the things that we were going through and we were self-medicating. We were
Right.
using these drugs to kind of numb ourselves, right, from the things that we were going through. How has my younger past affected me? I'm really emotionally detached,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right? Uh, I have this ability to kind of turn my emotions off and on like a light switch.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just I've gotten to a point where I kind of love when it makes sense, right? I've lost the ability
Mm-hmm.
to grow attached.
Yeah.
In all honesty, like it's the weirdest thing. Um, I can spend time with someone, but the second that I decide I'm done, it's like I'm done. Like
You
there,
can cut it off.
there's no missing you, there's no nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and for a long time, I thought it was normal.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Another thing too is I'm also very desensitized, uh, especially when it comes to death.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
my mother passed early 2015,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother died at 3:30. No, she died at 2:30. I was out at the hospital at 3:30. Stayed with her body till 5:30, and I was on set shooting a scene at 6:30.
Mm.
And,
Wow.
and everyone was like, they're like, "What are you doing here?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I have things to do.
Right.
You know, I'm really good at compartmentalizing my emotions and really just logically making everything make sense. Because even when my mother passed, to me, it was be so submerged in gratitude that you don't even realize what you lost. It was be grateful for the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you had her for 38 years, because some people lost their mother at birth. Some people lost their mother at 10 years
Right.
old. You know, for instance, my daughter, she lost her mom at 14. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so who am I to feel like I was slighted?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
to be grateful. You know, I have a habit of rationalizing everything,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I really think that the reason I do that is because I'm giving myself a reason not to feel.
Mm-hmm. But you just brought up your daughter. How does that affect your relationship with your daughter, which you become emotionally detached and desensitized, etc.?
Well, my children, for the most part, are the exception to the
Mm-hmm.
rule. You know, my kids, like I love my kids to death. You
Right.
know, and,
Mm-hmm.
and whereas I keep most of the world at arm's length, you know,
Mm-hmm.
my children,
Mm-hmm.
there's a part of me that's accessible to them that no one else can access. And it's simply
Yeah.
because they're my children. And it's also because, you know, me and my mom didn't have the best relationship, right? And uh, like my aunt used to tell me, you know, she said, you were 6 years old telling me that your mother didn't love you, right? Which was something I just didn't understand because I was younger, but also I didn't have a dad there, right?
Okay.
A couple of years ago, I realized that I have no reference point of what it feels like to have a father. Like none. I don't even know what that
Yeah.
feels like.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so because of that, I was to do the opposite. You know, when I had my children, I wanted to be a more realistic version of the father that I always wished that I had. And
Mm-hmm.
being that I knew what it felt to feel alone, I knew what it felt like uh, not to be abandoned, because at no point did I have resentment towards my dad
Mm-hmm.
at all. Um, I just knew what it felt like, you know, for your dad to be non-existent, and I never wanted my children to feel the same thing. So because of that,
Yeah.
you know, I just tried to do everything to be there for them. I mean, circumstances always didn't allow, but I did everything for the most part in my power too.
Mm-hmm. Do you discuss
Yeah.
mental health with your children?
Yeah, very much so. Very, 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 very much
Good.
so. But at the same time, with me and my children, it's also a balance.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like mental health should be discussed, but
Yeah.
at the same time, we need to make sure that it's not being used as a crutch. We need to
Yeah.
make sure that it's not causing children and people to be so quick to not try.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, because the truth is, struggle builds strength. You understand? I'm only as strong as I am because of the struggles that I've been able to overcome. I strongly believe that strength doesn't lie in the pain you can inflict, it lies in the pain that you can endure.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you grow through pain. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a characteristic of life. It's just part of the process. So
Mm-hmm.
because of that,
Yeah.
I make sure that, yes, we discuss mental health. You need to take care of yourself. You need to understand that you are human, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to feel guilty for being tired. You don't have to feel guilty for feeling discouraged.
You're
But
right.
at the same time, I don't want you to check out the second you do feel that way. I want you to try to a degree, you know, try your best to deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's funny you
Because
say
that could
that
be
because
fear.
I'm yeah, I'm sure that Dr. Hill probably could relate, but we're both licensed clinicians. And for instance, I received a call from a parent who's interested in their child receiving therapy. So I always ask questions, you know, to the mom or dad, whoever, tell me about the child, background, etc. And she like, I'm pretty sure my child has ADHD. And I'm like, what makes you think your child has ADHD?
ADHD. Mm-hmm.
He doesn't listen. He doesn't sit down. And I said, so he was like recently suspended or something. I'm like, what was the consequences? And she said, well, we don't really give consequences. I'm like, what do you mean you don't give any consequences? She was like,
Right.
I took the phone away for a week. I said, did you see any improvement in that week? No, I didn't get a chance to see improvement because I gave him back for Christmas break. And then when he came back, he was suspended. So how did we gather 88? You know what I mean?
Right.
And I'm not one to like promote diagnosis on, people or tell them to go get medicated. And so sometimes I just listen to certain things and I feel like mental health becoming more popular is like a gift and a curse
It's
now.
becoming a scapegoat. That's and that's
Yeah.
that's my issue to a degree. It's just that I feel that it should definitely be taken seriously. But
Absolutely.
first and foremost, when it comes to children, I believe that all children are different. They don't all grow and learn at the same pace.
Mm-hmm.
There really is no formula or no guideline for where a child should be at a certain age. So just because a child is a little bit behind, you be so quick to run to the fact that there's a problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because
I think it's very important. It's the same thing. Like, like if you go to the hospital, sometimes they'll say, well, it appears to be this, but let's keep you overnight so that we can observe you, right? Because we don't want to be so quick to diagnose you.
Right.
And I think that be so quick to just say, oh, this is what it is. There should be a period of observation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where
Agree.
because so many different factors go into our personalities and who we become and how we behave.
The environment.
The environment, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of that
Right.
needs to be taken into consideration.
That lack of
Absolutely.
education
I know
on mental health issues.
Yeah,
Correct.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
that's why we have Talk Thursday and Mental Health Day, so educate the people.
Right.
Yeah.
Now
And
I wanna
I
ask you something.
think that parents don't like to do, which is be accountable, right?
Right. Right.
Something I always say is parents make mistakes and children pay for it for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And as a parent, we have a habit of not wanting to look in the mirror and be honest with ourselves and say, maybe there's something that I did wrong. Maybe calling this child out of their name is the reason they have low self-esteem and it's not depression.
Right.
You understand? We're so quick to point the finger at the child, but we never think to look in the mirror and be accountable and say, what is it that I've contributed to this happening?
That comes out so much in sessions with my clients. But Erica, you had a question you were going to ask him?
Yes, I kind of want to take it back where you said I can turn off my emotions like a light switch. And it makes me think about boys, growing up, them hearing boys don't cry, stop crying, you're a boy. And so when you said I kind of just grew up just already knowing how to switch it on and off, what do you think about that statement? When people telling boys can't show that emotion, does that already start them learning how to turn it on and off?
Well, truth be told, I've learned as a parent that we kind of work against ourselves. For a parent will say they want their child to be and to grow up to be an outspoken human being, but yet they'll never give the child an opportunity to communicate what it is that's on their mind, right? It's always shut up.
Right.
It's always should be seen and not heard. It's always do it.
Stay in a child's place.
Yeah, whereas, with my children, I've always given them the opportunity, even if they get in trouble, it's like, okay, and if you think that you shouldn't be punished, tell me why. And if it makes sense, and I'll hear you out. Times out of 10, it won't make sense. And, I always have a habit. When my daughter was young, anytime she would get in trouble, I would do my best to laugh. Right? When I'm speaking to her, and it's because I never want her to mistake the discipline for anger. Right? I'm not doing this because I'm angry. I'm doing it because it's to the best of your benefit. Right? I want you to grow.
Right.
But yeah, but back to the dial it back because I'm kind of going off track with I don't know. I don't know if it's that telling me not to show emotion as a boy, but I definitely do believe that children, even boys, they need love. They do. They
Yeah.
do. And I don't believe in that, not hugging. I don't have sons, but Lord knows if I had a son, I'd hug him up and kiss him up just as much as I hug my daughters. And that's
Right.
with no fear of that making him soft, because at the end of the day, as much as I want to teach him to be a man, I also, and excuse me when I say man, because what exactly does that mean? But as much as I want to teach him to be tough, right? I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
teach him to be, I don't want to teach him to be inconsiderate, right? And
Yeah.
at the foundation of love is respect. You understand? Without love,
Right.
nothing can actually go right, because that's at the cornerstone of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of how boys grew up, and that was a great question, Erica, and men now,
Mm.
you can see mental health is becoming more of a trend. This is actually one of the trends I appreciate for the most part. Like you said, instead of them using for clutch or whatever. Do you feel like men are more open to receiving therapy these days?
I mean, in comparison to 20 years ago, 10 years ago, definitely, because therapy wasn't even a thought.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't even a thought. We thought, for the most part, that the way we felt was just the way we felt.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, um, for the longest time, I may wake up one day and, I feel lethargic and I just feel off, right? I have no real motivation, but I don't know why that is. I mean, at this
Right.
point in time, I understand we all go through bouts of depression, and
Mm-hmm.
that's actually what it is. Um, but once again, you know, because I'm a strong believer in the fact that your emotions don't control you, you control your emotions. So even on those days, I'll go in the bathroom, I'll look in the mirror, and I'll say, shake it off.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work right away. Sometimes I may feel that way for 2 or 3 days. I may feel that way for a week, but
Mm-hmm.
eventually I will shake it off, because in my conscious mind, I'm aware that I am in control. And I think that that's one of the
Yeah.
scary things about depression, is that you can't allow yourself to get lost in it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be
Yeah.
present in the moment, and understand that
Mm-hmm.
it is just a feeling, and what you feel isn't necessarily real.
Mm-hmm.
The reaction to what is real.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts about you going to therapy?
It's funny because when when my daughter's mother passed 4 years ago, and I didn't want to play any games with my daughter's psyche, mental health. Um, so right away I started looking for a therapist, because I wanted to have her speak to a professional. And
Mm-hmm.
I was interviewing
Mm-hmm.
different therapists. There were conversations, and a few of them said, "You ever considered, you know, therapy?" And in all honesty, in the last couple of years, I've seriously considered it.
Mm-hmm.
I seriously considered it, simply because I'm on this quest to understand myself as much as,
Yeah.
and although I do have a pretty good understanding of myself, I'm also aware that I don't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So
Yes.
maybe someone from can help me get a better understanding. So I'm not saying that it's something that I'll definitely do in the future, but it's something that I have been seriously considering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How
Good.
can what you say? Was you gonna
Oh,
say
I'm
something,
sorry.
Dr. Hill?
No, yeah, I'm sorry to cut you off, Dr. Jones. I just really love when he said, "Is I'm on this quest to really know myself," and I think that is so powerful. I think people get this misconception, as we talk about diagnosing. I think people also think with therapy, something has to be wrong with you. You have
Right.
to be depressed. You got to be anxious, when really it could just be really finding out about yourself, really understanding who you are authentically. So I love that you mentioned that from a man's perspective.
Yeah, I'm
Mm-hmm.
happy you said that, because my desire, or to even consider therapy, has nothing to do with me thinking that there's anything wrong with me. Once again, it's just me
Right.
come to the best understanding of myself, who I am, and why I'm
Mm-hmm.
that I am, why I have certain habits, why certain things turn me on, why certain things turn me off.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Thank you for honing on to that, actually, Eric, because I also want to mention this to the people who are, thinking about therapy. So it's like talking to, I guess, like a best friend that's forced to keep your secrets, right? So I always give a
Yeah.
disclaimer: what stays between you and I, unless you're going to hurt yourself, someone's going to harm you, or you're going to hurt someone else, right? So it's a non-judgmental zone. And sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
rarely do any talking in my, and then they like, I just needed that, because yes, you may have your best friend. Yes, you may have this, but a lot of times it's very rare you could find someone that could play devil's advocate or stay neutral. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times people don't want your best interest. So you could go to that person, they like, no, it's wrong, because automatically they want to have your back. You understand what I'm saying? And then sometimes you don't even want an
Mm-hmm.
opinion. And as therapists, we don't give advice. We help you find the best answer for you. Sometimes you just want someone to listen to you without any feedback, because your whole life you were told what to do, what's right, what's wrong. So sometimes it's just session. It's like sometimes people want to just hear themselves out loud with a neutral
Right.
person. And
Yeah,
it helps.
I I always compare it to. I always say that therapy isn't necessarily someone giving you the answers. It's helping you find the questions that'll help you
Mm-hmm.
find the answer on your own.
Yes.
Absolutely. So we, like
Yes.
Erica say, like, we're like tour guides on your healing journey if you need healing, or whatever. It's just like when we're walking
Mm-hmm.
hand in hand, and sometimes it's not like, I have some people I meet with once a month. They just need a check-in. I have some people I meet with
Yeah.
bi-weekly, and then I have some people I meet with, it depends. It's like, it depends on your situation. So I just wanted to definitely make that disclaimer. But thank you so much for that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but back to Moses. So how can, and I know this is actually probably like a 10-part question, because I know no answer would be the same, but how can someone support a man? And that's like a friend support a man, your daughter support a man, a partner, mental health. Like, what would be your
Mm-hmm. Your
suggestion from a
spouse.
man's perspective? Not, we
I
know we say
think
as
that for,
this,
for
but
one for one that's a very complicated question. I
or
think
if you think that's possible.
I no, I definitely think it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Def I think in order to answer that question, I have to first go to a man's genetic makeup to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Something I always say is that at the root of a man's essence
Mm-hmm.
lies the desire for respect, right? Men are
Yeah.
not capable of functioning in environments where respect does not exist,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a perfect example. Me, for instance, whether it's a relationship or whether it's a job,
Mm-hmm.
right? If respect is non-existent, I'm either going to, I mean, if it's a job, for one, if it's a higher up, I'm going to either have to check that higher up,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm going to have to
Mm-hmm.
quit,
Right.
because
Mm-hmm.
mentally I cannot deal with in this space where I am not respected.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a woman supporting a man begins with respect. Now, respect has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with serving a man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think
Say that again, please, for
I
the
said
back.
respect has absolutely nothing to do with serving
Two
a
different,
man.
it's two different things. Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
respect is simply considering who that person is and understanding,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, Now, for instance, a lot of times you hear women say, I'm an alpha female, right? And because
Mm-hmm.
of that, are afraid to deal with me. They're not strong enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, that is all right. And understand that what I'm referring to is a man. I'm not referring to a boy. I'm not referring to a grown boy. I'm referring to a man.
That's important.
Mm-hmm.
That's very,
That's that's very
Yes.
important. And the issue with that dynamic with an alpha female is that a lot of women have it misconstrued, right? They
Mm-hmm.
confuse being loud, being outspoken, right? They confuse disrespect as strength.
mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? And because of that, a true man, once again, can't exist in that space. And another thing that a man will not do is he's not going to fight you to respect him. It's either the
Yeah.
respect exists here or it doesn't, right? Um, because peace is also very, very important. And I'm not going to disturb my peace by trying to force you to respect me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Over the
Mm-hmm.
years, what I've come to learn is that for the most part, respect isn't a choice. Some people are capable of it and some people aren't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a byproduct of how they've grown, what traumas they've gone through. And a lot of times a man sets himself up for failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
By trying to get a disrespectful woman to respect him. And another thing that respect does is also providing, it provides a space of peace, right? Because that's another
Yeah.
thing that a man needs. You can support a man's mental health without peace, without respect.
When you say peace,
Mm-hmm.
what do you mean?
Uh, Peace is as simple as
Wait, can I pause you for a second? And I'm asking that because I've had conversations similar, and sometimes women think peace to a man is not confronting a situation
no,
that
I'm bringing it
bothering
up.
them. You know, think
Yep.
yeah,
so.
that
Clarify.
that's not true. That's not
Right.
true. I think peace is not disturbing. It's not disturbing the harmony, right? And when I say
Yeah.
um, not creating a hostile environment. You know, something that I always used to say is if there is peace in my home, then I can take a break to go back out into the world and deal with whatever chaos awaits. You know, as black
Yeah.
men in America, we deal with enough. You
Yeah.
understand? Fighting a war out there in the world. I don't need to go home and fight another war. This space, this is supposed to be my safe space. This is where I'm supposed to recharge. You
Yeah.
understand? And once again, I think all of that is confused with cooking, cleaning, taking care of a man, and that is, it has nothing to do with any of that. It's just a safe space of understanding, a space where a man does not feel judged, a space where a man
Yeah.
can feel that it's okay to be vulnerable, right? Without that being used against him.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
for the most part, I think that that's that's what it is in a nutshell. How a woman can support a man's mental health is by creating that safe space where he's not he feels safe to be vulnerable. He feels that this is the space where he can recharge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I want to ask you something as we talk about respect, because I hear you on respect can comfort mental health, but I also can see where respect can also comfort a person's ego. So, to a man, what would you suggest to him on communicating to his partner or his spouse? What does he need to check in with himself to see that I need this respect for my mental health versus I just want respect so you can boost my ego? What does a man
Well,
need to
see,
check in with himself on that?
listen, boys want respect for ego. Men want respect because it's just part of who they are. For instance, I demand respect,
Okay.
and it has absolutely no
Mm-hmm.
ego. It's simply because once again, I cannot function in a space where it does not exist. I mean, it's something that I have to have, just like oxygen, right?
Mm-hmm.
If this room is running out of oxygen, I'm eventually going to have to leave this room. And it's the same thing with respect. If it's not in this environment, I'm eventually going to have to leave here because I
Yeah.
can't function. I cannot thrive in a space where respect does not exist. And as a man, I'm
Mm-hmm.
aware that respect has to be given. You know what I mean? It's a two-way thing. It's not something that I expect, that I don't
Right.
expect that I have to reciprocate. You know, respect is a two-way street.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Hill.
No, I was just agreeing with him. I think that cancels out the ego when it is a two-way street, because then you really see this respect is needed for their mental health.
And I think that's also helped keep the peace within the home as well.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so. You know, respect allows you to put your partner before your emotions, because you can be angry, but respect won't allow you to treat your partner or speak to your partner in certain ways because you're aware that that's not okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to be a little transparent. I could agree because it's certain things I have done in past relationships that I would never say or do in this relationship. And it's because the way I respect my significant other.
Mm-hmm.
Also, let's not overlook the fact that there is no love without respect.
Mm-hmm.
Lies at the
Right.
foundation of love. So when someone tells you they love you and they don't respect you, I'm not going to say it's not true. What I'm going to say is that I've come to realize that everyone is not capable of the same version of love, right? Because of their traumas, some people are only capable of a dysfunctional version of, and it's what they consider as love, but
Mm-hmm.
clear on how you want to be loved and what you need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to decipher whether, that's why it's so important to take your time to get to know someone,
Mm-hmm.
because you have to be able to decipher, is this person capable of giving me what it is that I need? And if they can't, you got to keep it moving, because I'm sorry, there is no teaching them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I want to
Yeah.
say this to my, and I'm not one to judge, and to each his own, but I want to make a comment to my females who think toxic relationship is a way of love. So those are the one I'm going to say, hey, we need to come to therapy. Like, so
Say
where
yes to
that
counseling.
stemming from? Okay, what did you see growing up? What are you missing, or what do you need for you to feel like you need some type of toxicity to feel like you are loved? You know what I mean? Like I see that meme floating around, and people, you know what I mean? Like at some point, you should. It shouldn't be toxic relationship to prove that you're loved.
I mean, listen, I think that what's happening these days is that dysfunction has become so rampant that it's becoming normalized, right? So it's almost like 90% of the world went crazy. So now we think crazy is sane.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the strangest thing. I always used to say that it used to be that the one-eyed man was king in the land of the blind, but it seems that the blind have convinced the one-eyed man that sight is overrated.
Mm-hmm.
So now he walks around with his one
Mm-hmm.
eye closed.
I
In
love.
the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So speaking of supporting the men, now I know you have, your male friends, etc. Do men support each other's mental health?
I mean, we do. We do. I
When you say
mean, I
who's
mean, and you know, Dr. Jones, this is something that you're aware of because me and your partner, we're very close.
mm-hmm.
You understand? And even more than listening to each other, I mean, something that I try to instill in all of my friends is to hold each other accountable. And I think that is so important. I think it's so important that it's not just about supporting each other. It's about not being
Mm-hmm.
afraid to hold each other accountable,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right? Accountability is so important. it's so important for you to
Mm-hmm.
not be afraid to tell you, look, bro, what you're doing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You
Don't be a
understand?
yes man.
Because, you know, I want to compare it to, how can you love somebody if you don't hold them accountable? You hold your children
Mm-hmm.
accountable because you love them. If a parent doesn't hold their children accountable, that's considered neglect.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
so many people who are in friendships, right, who sit back and don't agree with their friends do, but yet they don't say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How do you care?
Right.
Yeah.
How can you honestly say that you care about that person? It just doesn't make sense to me. But,
Right.
as far as, me and my friends, me and my male friends are concerned, we definitely do our best to hold each other accountable, to be there for each other, to allow each other to vent, and also be careful who you talk to, right? Be careful who you vent to, and the reason being is
Mm-hmm.
everyone doesn't have, you know. Once again, I'd like to dial back to, every man isn't a man. You
Right.
know, you have you have men who will see you in a good situation. You have a good woman in your life, and you're running around behaving like you're single, and they won't say to you like, bruh, you got
This
a
isn't
good
the
thing.
move. Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? You got a good thing. Like, yo, bro, you don't want to mess that up.
Right.
Right. Right.
So I think it's all about the people. It's also about the level of maturity of the people you have around you as well. You're only
Mm-hmm.
going to mature as much as the people around you, because
Right.
they going to kind of pull you into their zone, into their space. You understand?
Yeah.
I think it's important to do a self this and a knowledge of your environment every now and then. You have to start because
Right.
sometimes you relationships and friendships and people have to learn it's okay to grow out of certain friendships. You are not that person you were 10 years ago. If that person is still that same person, it's not like there's beef or hate or drunk. You just have to learn how to distance yourself. And I feel like sometimes people feel like it's harder to break up in a friendship than an actual relationship, and people blame time or
History. Mm-hmm.
point. And it's not easy because trust me, I go through but you have to realize what's healthy for you, and that includes your environment.
Correct. Self-care and thinking about yourself to a degree is not selfish.
Yeah.
And I think that this is the mind game that people play.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They make us feel guilty for putting ourselves first. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone has a habit of taking things personal. I mean, a lot of times we do things for ourselves, and people think that it's because we have an issue with them. I mean, and me personally, that's something that I try my best not to do. Is not take things personal.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
can't.
At
You
all.
can't. Yeah.
Who you are.
With
Oh, go ahead, Doc.
no, I wanted to ask him as we talk before we move on with, men supporting other men in their mental health. When we think about grief, right? I
Mhm.
know for some of my clients, one of their friends, let's pass or mother passed, or someone that raised them. A lot of times they don't know what to say to them. And so typically they'll take something with them that will numb the situation, to provide that support. From a man's perspective, how do you think men can approach their friends and say, you know what, I think you need to talk to somebody. I think, maybe counseling might help. What do you think could be a good approach for men to suggest that when they just don't know what to say?
Um, I think counseling is something that someone has to be ready for. I don't think that it's something that they can be led to.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Something that I learned with, the situation with my daughter losing her mom is that when someone's down, right, especially because of grief or a situation that there's really nothing that you can do to make them overcome that pain, you don't always have to
Mm-hmm.
try to lift them up. You need to lay there on the floor with them. you know, because the most important thing at that time for them to know is that they're not alone. So I think sometimes it isn't about leading a person to therapy. It's about letting them know that they're not alone, planting the
Yeah.
seed, and allowing them the time to come to that decision on their own.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I
Yeah.
always tell people, like, I'm not going to force therapy on you. Although I'm a therapist, I'm not going to force it. However, what I am going to
Right.
is for you to find something that can help you feel mentally healthy, whether it's you've confided in someone, you know, and I mean that, you know, not like a coping skill like a drug or something. If you need to talk to someone, if it's your pet, whatever, find something that can help support you, whatever the case may be. And when it comes to grief, I hate when people say it happened a long time ago. Grief does not have an expiration date. No
Right.
one, you enough time has passed, and that's whether you're grieving a death, whether you're grieving you know, that's grief. Everyone handles it differently,
Yeah.
and it's more of learning how to cope with it more than forgetting about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even think that grief is something that you overcome.
Right.
You know, I think grief is something that you learn to deal with. Um,
Right.
and that's simply because, you know, losing, listen, I've lost a lot of people in my life, a lot. Um, and I mean, from a very young age, like I've lost, oh my God. And I don't think that you ever let those people go. I don't think grief is something that you overcome. It's something you learn to deal with. It's something that you learn to accept, and it's something that you learn to live with. I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
truth be told, when my loved ones leave this earth, I don't want to forget them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I don't want to ever do them the forgetting them, you know, but I do want to learn how to live with the fact that they're gone.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Coping skills. Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
and and allow it to not stand in my way. I think it's like fear, right? Fear can either you can either put it in front of you and let it serve as an obstacle, or you can put it behind you and let it serve as something that's going to push you to go further. You
Mm-hmm.
understand? I think it's the same thing with grief. I mean, once again, we're in control of these emotions, and you can either allow grief to serve as that thing that's going to hold you back, or, you know, for
Right.
instance, the memory of my mom. Look, I'm gonna go out there and I'm gonna make my mom proud. Like it's you know, it's on you. It's on you
Right.
how you decide to.
Mm-hmm. Now, you're not who you were years ago. You definitely, you know, I'm sure you matured. What would you tell your 16-year-old self today? If you had to give one message to your 16-year-old self, what would it be?
It's okay to be human.
Mm-hmm. And what?
Um,
Yes.
and and the reason I say that, I mean, especially with me being a man, we have a tendency to want to be superheroes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we have a tendency to feel guilty for any type of weakness. And when I say, you know what, weakness is the wrong word to use, because to be discouraged doesn't make you weak. To be tired doesn't.
Right.
You know, the reality is, it's it's our existence on this planet is hard. You know, we're the only species
Mm-hmm.
on this planet, right? And you have to think, you're going along this journey for a lifetime. How do you expect to not at some point be tired and need rest, right? We
Yeah.
push this unrealistic narrative. Team no sleep. I don't sleep. I work 24 hours a day. You know, you better not spend the day home. You better not stay in your bed past 8. And it's like, what?
Right.
We're
Mm-hmm.
not machines. And if you go for too long without rest, you're gonna break down.
And that's why we.
Right.
You know, and
Yeah.
we have a tendency to feel guilty, right? If we take a day to ourselves and lay in bed watching TV all day,
Mm-hmm.
eating ice cream, and it's like, you're a loser. And it's like, no, you're not. Maybe you
Mm-hmm.
needed that day. charge so that tomorrow you can go out there and fight even harder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You
Right.
know, don't feel guilty for being discouraged. Take the time that you need to get over your discouragement and understand that
Right.
true, true failure only occurs at death.
I
So
like that.
dying.
Yeah, I like
I
that
like
too.
that. I like.
Yeah.
We don't
I like
have.
how you mentioned that.
Were you just going to say something?
No, I like that he mentioned that about rest. I think, I've heard this with my male clients where when they sit still, they almost feel like they're not producing, they're not being productive. And, sometimes that self care is being productive. So I love that you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that.
And you know what's another thing that I learned? That successful people do not tell you. No one says this. No one says this. On your journey to success, there will be times that there is absolutely nothing else that you can do but wait. It's like baking a cake or
Hmm.
cooking a meal, right? You prepare it, you put the recipes, you put it on the stove, you put it on the oven. And there's a point where you have to sit back and wait for it to cook. And if you take it out too early, you're going to mess it up. And it's just
Hmm.
like that with success. There are pauses. And it's like you're driving yourself crazy trying to find something to do when there isn't anything to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And it's okay. It's okay. You know,
Hmm.
there are times that I needed to take time for myself to regroup. I needed to re-strategize. And I didn't feel as if, oh, but I should be going. I should be going. No, listen, what we have to understand is you're continuing to contribute to your journey. It's just in a totally different way.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
You know, even cars on a racetrack have to stop at the pit stop
Right.
for a second,
Yeah.
and it helps them perform. Even boxers in between rounds have to go to their corner because you need to recharge. You are
Right.
human, and it's okay.
Yes.
And taking the proper time to recharge is only going to allow you to perform more efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, I had to learn that becoming a mom because I was someone that was in school, working, starting to, but like I always felt like I had to do something. So like I'll even in a group chat, like, oh my gosh, I sat down and did nothing today. And it feels kind of good. It's like I kind of had to say it out loud. It was like, and then I
Hmm.
found super overwhelmed, stressed out. And then it's like, wait a minute, you're your own
Um,
boss now. You could take a, you know what I mean? Like slow down, wait. So, like now I do not accept clients on Fridays through Sunday. Like I miss out on money, but I learned money like that disrupt my peace. Like I need a
you
3 day
gotta rest.
till
Money,
I'm
money,
okay.
society has taught us to worship the almighty bag.
Right.
And that's going to lie at the foundation of our destruction. And when I say that, I mean that as far as everything. You know, this idolization of the so-called bag is causing us to step away from our humanity. It's causing us to measure the worth of other people with the wrong ruler. You know, and this is something I've told you, Dr. Jones, like this idolization of the bag, in all honesty, is leading us down a path where in another 10 to 20 years, love may not even exist.
Yeah, we discussed.
Hmm.
Because in this day and time, love has become so transactional. People aren't in love with other people. They're in love with the idea of who they are. And especially as a man, and I'm not speaking for all women, but I know to a degree, a woman is in love with this idea of how a man fits into her plan for the future.
Check off the
Yeah.
boxes.
Yeah, but it's no longer about him. It's no longer his essence. I remember when I was young, a woman walks into the room and it's like, oh my God, like I don't know why I love this guy. It's the way he walks. It's just the way he moves. It's something about him
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't exist
Hmm.
anymore. It's what you look like on paper. It's about what you can provide. It's about what you can do.
What
You
you
want,
can give me.
it's sad. It's truly sad.
Mm-hmm.
Truly
Hmm.
sad. And I'm I'm worried
Mm-hmm.
about the path that we're going down because I mean, my children, they're the ones that are going to have to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah.
know, and we assess so much of our self-worth to what we have, when our self-worth has
Mm-hmm.
nothing to do with that. You know, I see people who think they're better than other people because they wear luxury brands or because they have this bag, and it's just like, you know, truth be told, you can make a person can make $1 million a year, but
Mm-hmm.
a messed up person will always be willing to do less for you than a good person with nothing, you know. And that's why a lot of times when you ask a woman, what do you bring to the table? And the first thing they state is, well, this is how much I make, right? This is what I have. Now, I want y'all to think about this. Why would that have value to me, right? Because as a
Right.
man, that's a resource that I'm not even allowed to tap.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Does that
if
respect go down?
I ask you to pay half the rent, partner, you have a roommate, right? If I was to move into your home, I'm a bum. You get what I'm saying? So how can I assess your value by what you have? You know, what pretty
Right.
much determines your worth to me is your character and who you are. Um, Simply because, you know, and I had this conversation with a friend of mine where it's like, look, I would rather date a waitress who loves me than a doctor who's all about the bag. And he's like, but why is
Mm-hmm.
that? You know, life is about ups and downs. And if you were to basically stumble, that doctor could help you. And I'm like, what you don't realize is that doctor that's all about the bag, 9 times out of 10, will eventually start resenting you and leave you. That waitress that loves you is going to go above and beyond to support you in every way possible to help you get off your feet, to get back on your feet. Like, it's as simple as that. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and people, I think, because we have began to value all these superficial things so much and we've began to idolize them, we don't understand that the root of a relationship, the foundation of a partnership, is supposed to begin with love. That is the priority.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Without love, you have absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Without love, you're living an illusion because it's a matter of time before all of that breaks down.
Yeah.
We could talk for hours and hours, but our hour is about to be up. So Instagram is actually going to
Yes.
cut us off probably within the next. So we want to thank you, Moses, for joining. This was amazing. I feel like we're eventually going to have a part two or
Yes.
something. Like,
Thank you for having
this was amazing. For those who joined late, I'm Dr. Jones. That's Erica Hill. We are Steps Counseling
Dr.
Consulting. You can
Hill.
follow us, Dr. Hill. Sorry,
I
at
had to check
Dr.
that.
at counseling consultant, Steps Counseling Consultant. I'll put it in the chat. Moses, can you see where the people can follow you at, please?
Sure. You guys can follow me at Cloud9TV _ that's CLOUD, the number 9TV _. Thank y'all for joining and thank y'all for
Yes.
listening. And once again, I am not a professional. I was just here speaking on my life experiences and the things that I've
Yes.
learned.
Yes, I hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. This was amazing.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
You have anything else you want to add, Moses, before we get disconnected?
Just understand that everything begins with love, man. I mean, and that's anything, whether it's the relationship between a man and a woman, whether it's the friendship between two men, the friendship between two women, you know, because if there's no love involved, it's nothing but an illusion and it is not real.
I think we could end on that note.
Yes.
Peace.
Yes. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.